Would you mind introducing yourself and what concerns and motivations you have about the local area?
Hello, my name's Ewen Maclean. I'm a dad primarily here, two kids at James Gillespie Primary School, and I'm interested particularly in how the kids get to school, but then more widely than that, how our local community travels around the area. And I'm particularly interested in sustainable travel and all of the benefits that come with people moving actively around the area, whether that be walking or cycling or wheeling or scooting, and spaces that are more livable for people, and that I mean for everyone. So I'm particularly concerned with that predominantly in the area.
Would you mind giving a rough timeline of the Blackford Quiet Route, the bike bus, how it was created and your involvement with it so far?
Sure, so it was about 5 years ago we set up the first bike bus, and the reason why we were motivated to set up the first bike bus is because this road behind us, White House Loan at the time, and the route from Blackford, which is part of the catchment of James Gillespie Primary School, had a lot of traffic and it was very dangerous for people to cycle by bike, and we'd heard about the Sheen's bike bus and we wanted to replicate that to show the evidence of the need for lots and lots of kids to be able to get to school safely. So we set the bike bus up with a big event, and we did it bi-weekly, and that involved up to 200 people at one point, I think, cycling along from the Blackford area to the school. That was around about 5 years ago. At that point, a lot of the focus was around what was happening with the Asiasi hospital. Then as COVID came in, well, before COVID came in, we designed what we referred to as a livable neighbourhood, which follows the principles for the low traffic neighbourhood. So for example, Waltham Forest, where you have such things as filters, modal filters like this, which allow everyone to still drive to every part of the area, but it prevents through traffic, so it allows the traffic to be invested in the area, and it means that people then feel more safe to cycle and walk within the area. So we worked on that, and then COVID came along and the council implemented a small subsection of that route.
What impact, positive or negative, have you seen the Quiet Route have on the local community?
I have only seen very, very positive impacts. The main positive impact, strangely enough, is that the bike bus has got much smaller in number, and the reason for that is because people cycle before and after the bike bus, and on days when the bike bus is not there, because they don't need that big group anymore. And the reason for that is because these modal filters prevent through traffic. It means people feel safe enough, previously didn't feel safe enough, and that means of course that there's less traffic volume. Those people that previously were driving are now cycling, so this is a virtuous circle. The other impacts that you see all the time is not only this bit here for the kids themselves when they come out of the school and go over to the links. There's a great sense of community, people standing around, for example. Also, elderly people who live down the road can go and sit on benches and have a chat. It increases the sense of community. Kids can interact with each other. They have a sense of free play outside. There's a great notion that now this car, as opposed to being given over to cars, is now being taken over by people, community and life.
What are your immediate concerns for the future of the Quiet Route?
Well, my immediate concerns are that people have a short-term view, and in the short term people will say, for example, that traffic that was previously going down here now takes a different route. The reality is that every single bit of evidence will tell you that traffic evaporates when you provide safer routes for people to walk and cycle, so modal shift happens. That is what all of the peer-reviewed research tells us. We know that, and what concerns me is that politicians are not being brave enough to take the known peer-reviewed research to show what is necessary to allow people to have a safer way of travelling around the area. And in fact, the short-term view is that some people will say, well, I can no longer get through this area, so I have to go somewhere else. And there are some very anecdotal comments that people make, and what worries me is that these emotive anecdotal comments are now driving, for example, the need for more consultation, which is just a prevarication of what we know we need to happen. In fact, we know full well what needs to happen, and what needs to happen needs to be implemented through political will by saying we know this is the case. The equivalent being, for example, in the past with the smoking ban, we know full well what should have happened with the smoking ban, but if you'd asked people who were smoking in pubs beforehand what they wanted to happen, they wouldn't have told you they want to stand outside in the rain and smoke. It's exactly the same situation now. Lots of people are saying, I don't want to drive around the corner or all the rest of it. I'm now having to go a different route, it's causing problems, and they'll give you all sorts of anecdotes of why that is, but in fact we know the reality is the evidence tells us that traffic evaporates and people then choose safer and more sustainable ways of getting about.
What are your thoughts regarding the concerns that residents have expressed to local councillors which prompted Marie-Claire Monroe and Neil Ross to put forward motions against the quiet route?
So, I refer to my previous answer. I think it's a very good question. My concerns are that anecdotally people are giving reasons why it is that this is not ideal for certain people in certain situations. They will quote, for example, the needs of disabled people or the elderly to be able to get around by car, and my response to that is that I feel that it's unfair on disabled people and the elderly to deny them access to areas which are nicer, quieter, greener, better air quality and a more community spirit. Actually, this sort of thing benefits everyone, because with the real problems we're facing are traffic volume, and what concerns me is that the solutions, it's effectively a magic bullet, a silver bullet, to be able to deal with inactivity crisis, to deal with lack of community engagement for people that are feeling lonely, all sorts of problems that happen within our society, both health, economic and to do with the environment. We have all the evidence to say that these are the measures that need to be put into place, and any prevarication by that, by pretending that we need more consultation, is something which I feel is disingenuous and very unhelpful.
What do you think about ideas to break up the route into smaller sections? Wouldn't this mean that certain sections are easier to protect?
It's a very good question, but actually all the evidence shows that piecemeal approaches to implementing low traffic neighbourhoods don't work, and the reason for that is you would still be encouraging through traffic in various bits of the low traffic neighbourhoods. In order for things to work properly, you have to implement them all as a whole, and the route as a whole has to exist with the modal filters that prevent through traffic. And in fact, I would argue for more modal filters on this route to prevent rat running in roads like Clinton Road, for example. That's been said that there's rat running. I completely sympathise with the fact that there's rat running in Clinton Road, but I would argue for more modal filters.
What advice would you give to others in Edinburgh and the rest of the UK who would like to implement something similar in their community?
The advice I would give is to try and implore your politicians to read the peer-reviewed literature, to understand what the solutions are, that they're well known from all cities around the world. Paris is doing the same thing, all manner of cities around the world that are doing these things, and they know this is the right solution for livable cities. Implore your politicians to read that and to be brave and show political will. All of the disingenuous and bad faith arguments that were given here were also given before Amsterdam, for example. And what happened in Amsterdam was political will was shown. But equally, I would show evidence to your politicians. That's one thing that our bike bus has done, for example. Our bike bus is evidence that we can show videos and images, and we can show you hundreds and hundreds of minutes of children being incredibly happy to actively get to school. And I think that's great evidence to show your councillors.